Let's start with a classic interview question: class components versus functional components. Class components are based on ES6 classes, where you rely on lifecycle methods like component did mount or component did update, and often deal with the this keyword, which can be confusing for new developers. They were the traditional way to manage state and side effects, but the code tends to be verbose. On the other hand, functional components are just plain JavaScript functions. With the introduction of React hooks in version 16.8, they became the standard. Hooks like useState and useEffect allow you to manage state and lifecycle events without writing classes. The syntax is cleaner, more readable, and much easier to test. Think of building a chat application. With class components, handling new messages might require multiple lifecycle methods, but in functional components, you can achieve the same behavior with just a single useEffect. This is why companies across the industry prefer functional components. They scale better, reduce boilerplate, and make onboarding new developers faster. Next, let's talk about the virtual DOM, one of React's most powerful features. The virtual DOM is a lightweight, in-memory copy of the real DOM. When you make changes, React updates this virtual representation first, compares it with the previous version, and then efficiently updates only the parts of the real DOM that changed. This process avoids expensive full-page re-renders. Here's a real-world example. When you like a post on Instagram, only the heart icon updates instantly. The entire feed doesn't reload. That's the virtual DOM at work, keeping the UI smooth and responsive. So when interviewers ask, they're looking to see if you understand that the virtual DOM isn't just about performance, it's about enabling declarative programming. You describe what the UI should look like, and React figures out the optimal way to update it. Now, let's go deeper into reconciliation and the diffing algorithm. Reconciliation is the process React uses to update the DOM. The diffing algorithm compares the new virtual DOM with the old one and determines the smallest number of changes required. If an element's type and key match, React reuses it. If not, it tears it down and rebuilds it. Why does this matter? Efficiency. Instead of repainting the entire UI tree, React surgically updates only what's necessary. Take a to-do list app. If you check off one item, React updates just that list row instead of re-rendering all items. This not only boosts performance, but also ensures smoother user experiences. In interviews, showing that you understand keys play a critical role in reconciliation will really impress the panel. Controlled versus uncontrolled components is another frequent interview topic. In controlled components, React state manages the value of the input fields, making React the single source of truth. This allows features like instant form validation, real-time updates, and tight integration with your component logic. Uncontrolled components, by contrast, store their own state directly in the DOM, accessed through refs. They're simpler to implement, but don't give React as much control. Here's a concrete example. On LinkedIn job application forms, controlled components validate email addresses or phone numbers as you type. But for simple file uploads, uncontrolled components work better because React doesn't need to track every keystroke. When answering, stress that controlled components are preferred in complex UIs where validation and synchronization are key, while uncontrolled components are fine for basic inputs. Controlled versus uncontrolled components is another frequent interview topic. Now let's cover keys in React lists, a deceptively simple but critical topic. Keys help React identify which list items have changed, been added, or removed. Without keys, React may re-render entire lists unnecessarily. With proper keys, only the affected items are updated. Keys must be stable and unique, usually database IDs or unique identifiers. Avoid using array indexes because they can cause mismatches when items are reordered or deleted. Consider an Amazon shopping cart. If you remove one item, React uses the key to update only that specific row, without flickering or resetting other items. This leads to better performance and a smoother shopping experience. In an interview, don't just say, "Keys help React optimize updates." Always include the reasoning. Keys are vital for reconciliation and ensuring UI stability. All right, let's do a quick recap of what we just covered. We started with class components versus functional components, and saw why functional components with hooks are the industry standard. We discussed the virtual DOM, which makes React fast by only updating what's necessary. We dug into reconciliation and the diffing algorithm, where keys play a critical role. We explored controlled versus uncontrolled components and why controlled is often the safer choice for forms. And finally, we learned how keys and lists prevent unnecessary re-renders and keep UIs smooth. These 5 concepts form the foundation of every React interview. If you can explain them clearly with real-world examples, you're already ahead of most candidates. Now, if you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends preparing for interviews, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next deep dive into React's advanced topics. Drop a comment below about which question you find trickiest, and I'll make sure to cover it in detail in upcoming videos. Let's keep learning together, and I'll see you in the next one.